Hey, 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 it is Friday, May 19th, 2023, right here, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the West Coast. I am Brannon, and this is Success Never Sleeps, where we as a collective of small business owners, entrepreneurs, martial arts school owners, we're trying to figure this thing out. We believe passionately in what we do. We love what we do, but how can we scale and monetize it so we can take care of our families, provide a living for our team, right? To be profitable, to save for retirement without compromising our art. That's always the hard, delicate balance with anything. And we're having like our inaugurational show today because now I'm flipping the script. I'm going to start bringing on school owners with real challenges, right? And I'm going to do my best to serve them and answer them. I sat on a panel this week at a pitch contest where startup companies got up there and they had 3 minutes to talk about their product, their demographic, how they have the solution. And it's wonderful to sit in real time and offer people constructive criticism, for the lack of the better word, but to inspire thinking, to inspire new thinking. And I think Roland Osborne says that really unique, or it was O.S. Smith who said, respect tradition, but embrace innovation, right? If we don't embrace a certain amount of innovation, what happens is we lose our relevancy. And that's important. We hear the controversy in the martial arts all the time. So I thought starting with Professor Hatfield would be a really good day. So I'm going to bring him on in a minute. Let's take care of a little housekeeping. Let's say thank you to our sponsors. Who are our sponsors? As always, we have Tusai, we have Market Muscles, My Studio, Kids Love Life Skills, LC Accounting. I'm excited. Steven's coming out here from Market Muscles in early June. So I'm actually going to have him live on the show. We're going to sit side by side and chop it up. And if you don't have a Market Muscles website, I might encourage you to get one if somebody doesn't have it within a 5-mile radius of your school. We run everything through an app. I never thought that would ever happen. Remember, I'm a kid who grew up without computers or cell phones. I'm a little bit older than a lot of people. So to drive my home business with an app is pretty insane, but it's not in today's time. I bought a Tesla recently, and I bought this whole car through an app. It was the most bizarre experience. I put my down payment at the website. Then they said, download the app. I loaded my insurance. I paid for it, because I bought it in cash. I paid for it there. And I did all of this via an app. And that's a trip, right? But that's it's where we are. Now we're facing AI and the metaverse and all the rest. And I only bring that up because what is the balance? What is the balance in our industry? Fortunately, right, all the data is proving that this work from home is not a good thing. People need to be together. People need to commune together. So as much as I was big on virtual during the pandemic because it was the only option we had and it saved our schools, I really believe you got to get on the mat. You got to train with people, and that's crucial as well. Kids of Life Skills, I believe the character development component of what we do in the martial arts is unequal to any other activity out there for adults or kids, right? I believe the emotional intelligence that we need, I would look at as emotional intelligence as mental self-defense in today's world. And if we don't have that, then that challenge in our own personal lives is going to be something hard to meet. So I'm very passionate about emotional intelligence in today's world. And we're in the position with something like Kids Love Life Skills, cultivating this character development for our young people and our future to help them be more resilient to cyberbullying. I say it all the time. I think it's extremely appalling that a 13-year-old girl is going to wake up today and decide her only best choice after being bullied is to kill herself. We failed her. Her parents failed her. The community failed her. So I wish a front kick would have solved that. I wish you could reach through the computer and do that. But I really believe if potentially that person had the resilience, that person had the self-confidence, that person had the goal-oriented mindset to be resilient to that mental self-defense might have saved her. So I'm very passionate with Kids Love Life Skills. And LC Accounting, I love my sister. She's a BJJ player and she does Kenpo also. But she gets us. She gets us as school owners. So when she comes there and helps you design your budgets and works with you, it's extremely powerful. And I can't say that enough. Cool. What do we got coming up, Marco? It's Time Life Balance, right? That's coming in August. And we've reworked it. I have branched out into industries, the tech industry, the medical industry, the entrepreneurial industry, the small business industry. So what we're going to do with It's Time Life Balance is Sunday, The one-day event is all business, all business. We'll teach you how to write systems, develop a team, how to cultivate content, how to set up your business effectively from day one. We'll talk about inspirational leadership and personal development. That's a big component for me. I always want to be a better version of myself, whether that's as a martial artist, as a person, as a husband, as a father. I want to be a better leader. So that's so important to me. But Saturday is all martial arts. You'll get to observe our classes and see how we do what we do. Our active student count today is 965 students. And so that's something to be said. We're on a path to do $2 million a year. I think what people enjoy when they witness us is I'm first and foremost a martial artist, second, an instructor, third, a business person. But make no mistake, for me, it's real important that I'm able to temper the both. And that's what we're going to that's why I wanted John on today, Professor, because I believe we really can dispel the myth that either you are a McDojo and you're simply this money-making machine, or you're just this artist who suffers. And my pre-frame is this. I used to have a record deal with Warner Brothers. I'm quite vocal about that. Hey, what's happening? I forgot. Yep, Professor Hatfield is a true legend. Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yep, BMA, Bridgewater Martial Arts. Cool. All right, we got some new people here. We got fans of Professor. That's super cool. That's super cool. And so here's my take. I had a major record deal with Warner Brothers. I had 3 top 10 hits, a #1 song for 6 months. And I remember when I signed that record deal, all of my musician friends told me that I sold out. You sold out, right? I go, what do you mean? When I had my guitar case open on Haight-Ashbury, where people threw in dollars and quarters and stuff, I'm playing the same music. Only difference is I'm doing it on a stage to 10,000 people. I'm doing it on TV shows. I'm doing it in recording studios. But the fundamental song that I wrote was still the same song. So we're going to, get into this because I think it's really important that Professor has a platform to share. He wants people to know that this is what he believes is important in the martial arts industry. And I know, we talk a lot about business. That's one of my fortes, but I posted my black belt test the other day from 1979. And I think people often forget that I've done this for 55 years because I believe our biggest albatross for us as an industry is most of us are really good martial artists, but we're terrible business people. So I tend to accentuate that and serve that. So let's bring him on. Let's bring him on, Marco. Professor, sir, how are you today?
I'm hanging in there. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I feel like this unique kinship all of a sudden because I looked up, your lineage. And when I saw the connection with William Chow and then Nitosi, I went, that's just, that's amazing. Because, I've studied with Ralph Castro, God rest his.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And Rick Alemany. And then my daddy had a school for 54 years. And he's turning 91 this year. And it closed during the pandemic.
He's turning how old?
My dad's 91 this year.
Wow, that's amazing. Awesome, huh?
The school was in one location for 50 plus years.
That's amazing. Downtown San Francisco, right?
No, in the Mission, not downtown, in the Mission, which was a very tough neighborhood growing up. So, Professor, just, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. I mean, you have a long, long history, and you are a legend, as they put in the comments there.
Well, I don't know who said that, but anyway, I'm on my iPhone, so I really don't have much. Okay. A little bit about myself. I started in 1973 in a cellar. Gentleman was teaching Kempo every Saturday, $2 in a rusty coffee can. And my dad found me the school, and that's what started it. That's what killed it. His cellar flooded out and closed the school, and I ended up studying at the United Studios of Self-Defense in Brockton. So the original 5 United Studios, the one who was in Brockton, Larry Mangoni. Shout out to Master Mangoni. But no, the Serio, Passari, and Chow lineage is what we stick to. I'm teaching the same curriculum I learned in 1976, so nothing's changed. A couple of adjustments there, a couple of inches moved on our feet, a couple of deeper stances in some forms, shallower stances in other forms. But the truth is, that's what I do. I've been studying. I'm a black belt in Kempo, but I've also been for the last 22 years. I've been working with a master in Chinatown, Winchell Wu from the Hungar School in Boston, Chinatown. Just amazing. Just a legend in himself. Just a wonderful human being.
Yeah,
But
Hungar
that's
is
it.
powerful. It's powerful. I did a northern southern Sulam system, and
Wonderful.
right out of a guy called Kwok Seo out of Chinatown. And once I got my black belt, my dad said, okay, you can diversify a little bit. So I got into the Filipino fighting arts, studied with Remy Priestess and Ernesto Priestess. And then Kwok Seo was another one, Chris Chan. We did Wing Chun with a guy named Chris Chan. Small circle jiu-jitsu with Wally J, not junior, senior.
Yeah, senior.
Oh, he'd sit there talking while my fingers like this. I'm tapping. I'm tapping. He's like, talking to people while he's got me in the lock. I mean, so, we both share that. So
you're in the same boat in San Francisco that we are in Boston. I'm so fortunate to be right outside Chinatown. Yeah. I'm about 20 miles south of Boston, but just a wonderful proximity. So, I always believe, I use this term all the time, reverse engineering. So anytime I'm trying to fix my technique, I always try to use reverse engineering, and I go back to the old masters and I have them tell me how horrible I'm doing, and it just seems to work. I just end up seeming to fix it. But anyway, that's really me. I've been running the dojo full time for about the last 11 years. I'm a nurse, and I was working in a adolescent psychiatric floor, and I decided that I wanted to be more part of the solution than part of the problem. So I started working with kids with autism 11 years ago. So I run 3 classes a week for kids on the autism spectrum.
That's brilliant. I had a whole sector, when I was in San Francisco. I don't go to that location as much anymore, but I have a room that's painted completely white with no mirrors, nothing to overstimulate, because I worked with a lot of kids on the spectrum, ADD, ADHD, highly functioning, sensory integration disorder. And it was very enlightening, very humbling.
Yeah, it's an epidemic, and I don't think people realize, but we've gone from, they thought that it evened out at 1 in 65 kids, but it actually, the 2018 CDC report came out and it's 1 in 42 now. It's crazy. It's just crazy. They really have no finger on why it's happening, but we're doing a great job here. Me and my staff are doing a great job of working with the kids on the spectrum. Yeah.
Wonderful. So let's start with your first question. I want you to share it, and then I'll try to give you my feelings and my input about that.
You gonna read it out, or you want me to read it? That's fine.
Go ahead.
So, good. So my thing is the integrity in martial arts. So I don't know what happens on the West Coast, but I know what happens on the East Coast with, people purporting to be things that they're not. I mean, and I know in the last 5 decades, you've seen the same thing that I had. People opening up programs where they really have no lineage. And what I mean by lineage, I'm not just talking about the names. I'm talking about the structure, the curriculum, the 500-year-old curriculum that's been perfected by people systematically over the years. And then they just decide to change everything and bang, or they know better than, 20 masters before them who had probably IQs twice as what we do, who worked in it every day, woke up every day, lived in the dojo. So my problem is, and I'm doing well. Don't get me wrong. The studio here is doing well. We have a lot of extra income that comes in, and the programs that we run, the executive self-defense and stuff. But my issue is with these schools opening up, how do you address the integrity and the character of the schools, and how do you educate the public into what a real martial arts school is and what a McDojo is? And I hate to use that term, McDojo. And for the record out there in Facebook land, I'm not doing everything perfect. I'm making mistakes, but I'm trying to correct the mistakes. I'm humble enough to look at the fact that I'm making the mistakes and going back and fixing them, or trying to find somebody to fix them for me. But I think my big question is, before my attention deficit disorder takes off, is how do we educate the public? How do we let people differentiate between a program that's just made up willy-nilly and designed to empty their pocketbook and not provide a solid product in return?
I've been extremely blessed to travel the world because, I work as a consultant now.
Yeah.
And I work with martial arts school owners all over the world, and I see the mixed bag. I definitely see the mixed bag. So for me, for many, many, many years, I would not open a school, Professor. No way. Because I was a really good soldier. I taught for the love of the art. I romanticized that part of it because I grew up in a martial arts school. My dad's school that was there for 50 plus years, we lived above it.
That's beautiful.
So I would train 4 hours a day on average, 6 days a week, tournaments every other weekend. And if we weren't doing that, we're fighting in the street because it was a very impoverished neighborhood. So we really got to see firsthand what worked and what didn't, what was art and what didn't. And what I learned on any given day, the best self-defense technique could be nothing in a given situation. Because for every defense, there's an offense. For every offense, there's a defense. So I wouldn't open a school, sir. I ran other businesses very well. I was very successful. Then I had the big recording career, and I would never open a school because I saw the McDojo. It's a Wikipedia term, McDojo. Then I saw that movie, Hand, Foot, Fist Way, and it was appalling. I didn't know that really existed, right? That kind of martial arts school. I didn't know that. There was a demo team. We never had a demo team. We never did any of that. My dad, first night, give the guy a good sidekick in the ribs. If he comes back tomorrow, he gets to train, right? I mean, it was never like that. And I had one school briefly, but I was still fighting. It lasted all of 9 months when I was 19 years old. Every night was fight night. Every night we trained hard. If somebody wasn't beaten, bloodied, or broken, we weren't training hard.
It wasn't a good night at the dojo. I get it.
I started like you. I started in a basement before my dad bought that building. My grandma helped him buy it. And the ceiling was about this high, and these tall guys are hitting their head on the beams. There was nowhere to run. You stood toe to toe. There were no gloves. There was no Junri safety kick stuff that first came out.
Right.
We took air conditioning insulin, that black stuff that goes around the air conditioning pipes. We cut it in half, and we used varicose vein socks that women wear. And we would stuff this air conditioner to protect our shins. And that was it. Maybe medical tape to tape up your hands. And, so I understand that. I understand that really well.
How do we interject that back into the martial arts? And I'm not saying everybody has to live like we lived, and maybe there's something to be said for the fact that we came out of, with no sparring gear. I have pictures of me sparring with no sparring gear back in the late 70s and early 80s. How do we interject that back?
Right? It's not this flying through the air off balance with this back fist and this cross punch underneath. I'm going,
right.
You get hurt in a street situation. It's just, I think so. But see, this is where this all came from. And so I'm sitting there. I came back after the recording thing. I saw Taibo. I thought it was great. I was a DJ. I was a musician. I'm an actor. And it's martial arts. Not really, but it was fun. So I became really popular with Taibo. But at the same time, I started nurturing martial arts programs based upon, because I was not going to give up Kenpo. There's just no way in hell.
No,
I'm not giving up my Kenpo. But as we know, with the majority, I think there's one guy, that's on the West Coast that has 500 Kenpo students in his school. But for the most part, most Kenpo schools are 100 to 150 on any given day. And for me, business-wise, as a sound businessman, that made no sense. I couldn't take care of my family. I couldn't buy a home. I couldn't provide for a team and make it their career. And I couldn't save for retirement. So none of those things were going to happen. So I went about cultivating a business model that preserved the integrity of martial arts, as well as allowed me, Professor, to be extremely profitable. And that became my whole thing for 7 years. And then once I did that, I shared it with the world. Because I'm like you, I believe great martial artists should make great money.
Right.
Rick Alemany, who's a very well-known martial artist on the West Coast, lives in a trailer park, and he's broke. Great Grandmaster Castro died almost penniless as well. And that's a crime to me.
We just lost Demora Sensei.
Right, I saw that.
And a few years ago, his school was taken by eminent domain, and nobody interceded. Nobody in the martial arts world. I was horrified that there was no collection, no fan book, nothing to help. What a loss. I remember my dad took me to Los Angeles or Anaheim, Japanese Deer Park. And he couldn't tear me away from here were all these rides. I was 8 years old. Here were all these rides with all these kids on it. And, swings and rides. And he couldn't rip me away from the martial arts demonstration. Little did I know that was Demora Sensei. Little did I know that was Fumio Demora. I mean, it just rocks me. So here's my thought. So real quick, I'm going to give you a little situation. So I'm talking to a guy. I'm having dinner with him. He opened up a school. I could throw a baseball and hit his school from here. And he's part of a local franchise program. And I said, so what are you teaching? And he says, what does your school teach? And, because I would promote him if he was doing a good job. And even though he's 5 miles from my front door. And he said, he says, we're teaching Krav Maga. And I said, who's your certification under? He says, I don't know. I have to check with corporate headquarters.
I know.
Okay. And then I said, well, what else? And he goes, yeah, we teach Muay Thai kickboxing. Yeah. And I said, which gym did you fight out of? He says, well, I've never actually fought in Muay Thai kickboxing. Yeah. I just used the instructional DVDs that the corporation provides. I go, what's your ranking?
Well, says, but you and I both know, Professor, that's not going to stop. There were times they were selling franchises with black belts and they weren't even black belts. You mean you bought a black belt with the franchise? Yes, I did. It's like, wow. I was judging at a tournament, and I remember that in the 80s when this whole thing started to happen. Karate Kid came out, and everybody, you could write a handwritten sign that said karate. Everybody wanted to be the Karate Kid, right? I was judging in a ring, and this person obviously was extremely lost. So I said to her, I said, are you okay? She goes, yeah, this is my first time judging. I said, great. How long have you studied? 2 years. Well, you're a black belt, and do you own a school? I do. How long have you had the school? 2 years. I said, I'm not, this isn't adding up. She goes, yeah, when I bought the school, the black belt came with it, and they had a whole course, cram and jam course to get me to be able to teach. That's not going to stop, Professor. It's not. So so that's what led up to how I got into the industry. You got to know there was this whole thing before for 38 years of my life. Then I realized if I sit silently on the sideline in small clubs, in small spaces, then this, that monster will perpetuate. I believe great martial artists should make great money. I really believe that. Just like our teachers are underpaid, right? I mean, it doesn't only perpetuate there. It's everywhere. So again, I cultivated this business model, and it was based upon Apple and Disney and Nike and other companies. And of course, my papa. A lot of people can't say they've been in one location for 50 plus years.
No, kudos to him.
My last black belt testing. Yeah, somebody criticized me for that. Because, you'll see these black belt testings with like 500 people testing for black belt. I just did a black belt testing. There were 15 kids. And that's it, because black belt to me is real important, Professor. And so, sure, it's a 4-year program. In our school, the average black belt is 7 years for them to get to it.
Yes.
And that's, again, for me, that's who I am. But when I can say a values-based curriculum can make $2 million a year, it makes people sit up and go, what? Is that possible? Right? I've had to show people my tax returns, Professor, because they say you are full of it. There's no way you're making that money without contracts, upgrades, belt testing fees, built-in retails. We do none of it. You will never pay me for a belt. Never, never, ever. Everything you get, you earn. No black belt testing's 5 hours. And that was really it. When I started engineering this curriculum, I already had core values in place that this I will not compromise for any amount of money. I'm call me old school. I just been doing it too long. I mean, to get in the commercial business.
So the second part, I guess the second part of my question is, how do we educate the public?
I think like this. I think you should have a podcast. I'm not super crazy about the Bushido guys because all they do is rip everybody apart. So it's almost laughable because they look for their most extreme cases. And those guys don't even have martial arts schools. I'm sorry, I can't wave my hand and you're going to fall over. That's just not going to happen.
No, I get that.
Yeah, not where I come from. You got to punch me in the face and then I'm going to shake your hand and say, please tell me what you just did. So I remember to keep my hands up, teach me what you just did. Right. And so I believe like this, I would say, Professor, start a podcast. But I think the challenge, what I'm witnessing is people bitch and moan and complain, but nobody is proactive. Nobody's saying,
I agree.
Right, because it's the subtle things, Professor, right? You go into the school. I went to be a speaker at someone's black belt testing and nobody could throw a front kick. And I was sitting there going, why are they applauding this? Like they just invented the cure for cancer.
Well, that goes back. Well, that goes back to if you came in here and the kids came in here and had Nerf gun wars and noodle fights and they had a great time. We ran obstacle courses. And then when they went home, how was karate? Well, karate was fine. I said, my biggest non-sales speech is to parents in my community is your child's going to come in here and not have a good day every day.
Yes.
But that's going to translate into something.
To
I mean,
grit. It's going to
that's
translate to grit, and resilience is going to translate to true discipline, which is doing your best when you don't feel like it.
right.
That's where we build character, right? It's easy to be great when things are going your way, Professor, but to be great when things are hard, that's what builds character, right? That's what makes us better people.
We were just, me and Mark were just talking before we went live. And I said, I had an incident we went to a March tournament. I don't know if you know Paul Savisi. Shout out to Paul. He's Grandmaster of Savisi is doing an amazing job. He brought in Eugene Cedeno and George Lim and Al DeCascus last March for seminars, plus the tournament. He runs a beautiful event. Great guy. He's doing awesome. We've been friends now for about 20 years. He's doing incredible. He's up on the North Shore of Massachusetts. But I said I had a little discussion with my teen class. They said, okay, who's registered for the tournament? I just need a show of hands, blah, 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 blah. Does anybody need to work on anything? I asked this one kid, I said, you need work on your staff form before he does a marvelous staff form? You want to show it to me before we go? He said, oh, I'm not doing forms. I'm just fighting. And I went, really?
Not my daddy's school. You could never do that. You had to do both.
Both.
No way.
Then I had some kids that were doing forms that didn't want to fight, the mentality. No. So I brought in a whiteboard, and I took it as a learning moment. I brought in a whiteboard. I knew what he wanted. I knew this kid's name is Franco. Franco, if you're out there, I love you, but we're going to fix you. Not that you're broken. And so I said, I know what he wanted to be when he got. What do you want to be when you get older? Both his parents are combat vets from Afghanistan, both nurses, wonderful human beings. So I want to be a nurse like my mom and my dad. I said, okay. So I wrote nurse on the top of the board. Then I wrote underneath it, I wrote algebra, I wrote sociology, I wrote psychology, I wrote pharmacology, because I'm a nurse. I said, so which one of these courses do you not want to take? He said, oh, I'm not taking algebra. So I crossed off algebra, then I wiped off nurse. I said, okay, give me another career, because you can't be a nurse. You have to know algebra. You have to be able to dose medication. You can't kill people with medication. Yeah. And he kind of looked at me, and he's 15 years old, right? And he kind of looked at me. He goes, really? He goes, maybe I want to be an engineer. I wrote back in algebra, and I circled it, and I wrote engineer. I go, so in life, right? I love it. In life, you have to do things that are uncomfortable constantly to make yourself a better person. It's horrible that that's the way it is, but that's the way it is.
Well, I mean, and I think if we can do that with a sense of empathy,
true,
right, and compassion. I mean, I always grew up because it was my papa, right? He was my dad. He was my martial arts instructor and my coach. And you do as I say because I'm your father. I was the prodigal son, and then when I finally rebelled, because I'm much like my father, a very independent spirit, then I was a disrespectful kid. And I remember that conversation with my dad. I said, Papa, I'm just like you. You're independent. You're an entrepreneur. You own your own business. You have your own way of doing things. So why wouldn't you welcome that? So there was that dogma too, because I'm the master. You're the student. You do as I say. Plus, I was his son. So I saw that didn't work because my papa disciplined me, but he didn't empower me with self-discipline. So I was lost in my 20s. I was just lost, stumbling and fumbling, trying to figure out my own self-discipline. And so again, if we sit quietly, behind the curtains and we say nothing, I believe the industry won't change. But if we just simply bitch and moan, then we've offered nothing either. So when I cultivated this model and I broke my first million in 2007, looking at our industry as a whole, what we lack is business, but business without core values and purpose. See, you got those guys out there, they're salesmen, right? Contracts, upgrades, belt testing fees, And I don't believe in that at all. Because I don't want to wear a uniform I've been wearing since I was 5, a black belt I got in 1979, and be Joe salesman. I don't think it's in line with the Budo spirit. I never felt that. So then we have to have a really great product, great martial arts instruction, right? I believe, like Michael J. Fox said, if a student doesn't learn the way you teach, then teach the way they learn. Come on, you and I work with kids with special needs. Will they ever be able to perform that kata? Let's say somebody who doesn't have special needs that trains 6 days a week, 4 hours a day? No. Should they be excluded from the martial arts because of it?
No, martial arts is for everybody, regardless. The only person they're in competition with is the person in the mirror. I understand that.
Yes, sir.
I understand that. But
so that education is like this. And when I put myself out in that arena, right, I hit a point where I was in the room speaking at all the big conventions, and all everyone's talking about is what stock they're buying, what car they bought, what vacation home. And I said, I thought we're supposed to be changing lives here. Well, what's going on? right? And yes, we should make a good living. I get all that, but how come we're not discussing how to better the industry? And so that's when everything changed for me. I became the rebel. I became the disruptor. I'm the guy out there going, hey, if they got contracts and stuff, you might reconsider that. So I've become this outlier, and I'm cool with it. I'm totally fine with it. And that's why, smart business, I've branched out into the medical industry, and other industries to continue the message of purpose. But I think, I would encourage, start a podcast. If you want to educate people, start a podcast. I think that's a good thing. As long as it's an advocate, a clear set of core values, a clear message, a clear why, and we just don't end up in a bitch session that my Taekwondo is better than your, Shotokan. Because that's also the thing I see a lot too.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
these threads. And they go for days, Professor. I go, when do you teach? When do you run your business? I mean, these threads go on for days and days where they're discussing that. Or somebody will post a video and the technique's not so great. And they just go off for days and days. I'm going, when do you practice? When do you make a difference?
All these systems survived because they worked.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be here in 2023 if somebody didn't save their life to go and teach them. And I try to, and getting back to that conversation I had with that new school owner, that franchisee, I said, well, what's your black belt in? He goes, well, I'm a 7th degree black belt in American Kempo, which is, different with my Chinese Kempo. I mean, side by side, you wouldn't even be able to recognize them. And I said, well, that's great. I said, why don't you teach American Kempo? And he goes, nobody wants to learn it. It's too difficult.
I know. I've had that conversation, Professor, and the conversation went like this. Because I went, I was consulting a school owner, and in the window he had for the lack of a better word, panda, preschool karate, aerobic, fitness, kickboxing, gymnastics, teen karate. And I said, I don't see anything here. I see a hodgepodge. It's like a buffet in Las Vegas. I said, what do you have a black belt in? He stood up tall. His chest went out. 3rd degree, WGF Taekwondo, sir. And I said the same thing. Why don't you teach Taekwondo? And he said, well, because, I wasn't getting any students with it. I said, no, you just haven't learned how to teach it effectively. You haven't learned how to create a culture. You haven't designed a purpose-driven business. Because I teach Kenpo, sir. We still do katas. We still do all of it. All of it. It just became, how do I teach today's youth? So we added things like words to the katas, numbers to the katas, different things. We broke them down in smaller pieces. But when the day's done, they do a kata front to back, no words, no numbers, nothing, just like I did in 1979. So it's not, the end result, it's how do we get them there? And there's just no way. What's better? You want to eat a good hamburger with organic beef at a mom and pop burger shop, or do you want to go to McDonald's?
Right.
Naturally. So that's not going to change. So instead of spending my energy and time on that, I've created something that's very sustainable. I've helped school owners all over the world, and this is my platform. And I tell everybody, you don't have to be a sellout. You don't have to be a McDojo, nor do you have to suffer for your art. And like I said, when I signed the record deal, all my friends, you sold out. It's the same song I played on the street corner. Only difference is I'm getting paid. That is the only difference. So once I reconciled that, remember, it took 38 years, Professor. I wouldn't own a commercial school. There's just no way, because I think contracts suck. They just suck. I think.
Well, the problem with the contract is if you start, it gives them license to stop doing their job.
Yes.
Because they got you locked in for 12 months.
Yes.
We just lost Lisa Fontaine. If you're out there, we just lost one of our first students that signed up in 1992.
That's
and she took a corporate job in Florida and in Tampa, making a ton of money, and and God bless her, she's a wonderful human being. She's probably a wonderful human being because of this, but she's a wonderful human being for a lot of reasons. This was a piece of the pie, but but she started with the retainability, because it was always something here. I'm sure as well as I know, I'm always finding stuff that I'm making mistakes on and have to learn something differently
every day.
Why was I thinking like that?
Yeah.
So I mean, we've got a really good program here in Bridgewater Martial Arts in Bridgewater, Mass. We've been in town for 31 years, and people are finally starting to pick up what we're throwing down. It's no, if you want to study martial arts, and there's a mixed martial arts too, about 10 miles from here. And they say, and they say, what do you do? I said, I drop in there once or twice a month and work out with those guys. I said, I love it. He's doing a great job. Joe Lozon, he's doing an amazing job. And as far as me promoting the martial arts, there are 2 schools in this area where I'll send people. And one's, if they're looking for a mixed martial arts program, Joe is a signed UFC fighter, and Mr. Bethany down the street. So if my schedule or pricing doesn't work out, I said these are the other two options. There are no other options in this area. I'm sorry, but and I have students. I now have black belts coming from as far away as Sharon, Mass, and Braintree, Mass, both 20-mile drives. So I think I'm hitting it as far as doing the right thing, and we're doing all right. We're making money. I'm making money. All my instructors, there's two of my instructors to teach for their families to come here for free. I know that's old school, but I still do it for two of my.
It's not.
I still do
a handful of my old school guys in their 60s and 50s that work 1 day a week. They're retired, but they're not any less valuable than the full-time employee.
Right.
Right. I mean, they're not.
And my 3 karate instructors, my 3 paid employees are, 2 college students and a stay-at-home mom. So she loves it, and it works out.
Well, I think that's it. You've decided what is your version of success, and I think that's powerful. That is extremely powerful. I was a kid who grew up on welfare and food stamps. So for me, I always thought $1 million was a lot of money. I did. And so when I created this model, 3,700 square feet, I did the math, 500 students in order to generate $1 million a year at 35% net, right? And so that's where the model came from. There was no other rhyme or reason, because I wore my dad's suit to my high school graduation. That's how poor we were. My dad couldn't even buy me a suit to wear to my high school graduation.
I've been there, sir.
Yeah. But the big thing, I think the challenge for me is a lot of my old school constituents just simply dismiss me because they don't want to delve any deeper, right? And I'm trying to tell them, any of my guys, if you want to talk that, any of my guys can stand toe to toe with your guys, right? If that's what you want to do. And then it becomes, honestly, without being derogatory, my PP is bigger than yours. That's all that is. And the ego in the martial arts, I think, is what hurts us a lot too. I'm like you, right? If you punch me in the face, I'm going to high five you and say, what did you just do to me? Teach me what you did. So I get my hands up. I got no ego. I'm 61 now. And you and I both know the mind says jab. Hey, that moved 5 seconds later. What the hell? Right? And that just comes with age. So I think the humility, that the joy about being 61 is I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to stand toe to toe with a 70-year-old and duke it out. Right? I don't.
I did it Wednesday night. I sparred my teen class.
I know. I still want to do that, but my wife says don't do that.
I'm still.
She said if they beat you, you look bad. If you beat
that was Wednesday. That was Wednesday. It's Friday, and I'm still recovering.
I know.
But anyway,
I know. And that's the beauty. See, but I don't know if there's, because I see a couple of these digital marketers running around right now, and they're posting videos that tradition sucks. You're just about katas and stuff. Nobody gives a shit. We're the new school. Da da da. Okay. If that's what you believe and that's what you think will help better the martial arts industry, rock and roll. I don't feed you, I don't clothe you, but on the yin to the yang, I will stand on my soapbox and advocate for great martial artists who don't know business to learn good business practices so they can not only survive, but thrive. I'm a 3rd-generation small business owner, Professor. We should all be able to own our homes. We should all be able to put our kids through college. We should all be able to retire comfortably. I believe that. I'm
doing it.
Yeah, you are.
But but it took us 31 years to get the public, or to get the accounts.
But you also had, it's classic here, right? You were working as a nurse for the better part of that, right? Right. Yeah, and then the last 11 years you've been full time. I have a lot of really good friends, and they still call them clubs and dojos, and they have 900 square feet, maybe 75 to 100 students. They work a good job with the city. They have retirement, pension, medical, everything. And they go to tournaments every other weekend. I told them, hey, if that's your version of success, that's super cool. But at least know that. And then once you have that defined, then you advocate for that. So it's the same thing here. I think you would do really well on a podcast. I think you should write blogs. I have the #1 martial arts blog if you go to Google. And it's not because I use AI. It's not because I use tactics and keywords and all this weird stuff. I just write from the heart. I write through the lens of a 3-year-old kid that started in the martial arts, a 5-year-old. Well, officially they didn't say, because they didn't have kids' uniforms back in 1967.
No, they didn't.
Right. So I actually started when I was 3. And I remember Johnny Carson, where it was like just amazing. We have an 11-year-old black belt. It was just so unheard of, right? It was just like, wow. It was just, and then he's on Johnny Carson. So I officially couldn't say I started till 1967 because they didn't have uniforms. But back then, they were all white uniforms. Do you remember the RIT dye that came in the bottle?
Yes, I do.
Yep. We had a big bucket. We put that white uniform in there and we dye our uniforms. And we dye them black. Yeah, because there were no black uniforms back in 1967.
Now, United Students of Self-Defense, you started with a white, and I think as you got up, you got your black uniform. But whatever.
But we're a Chinese system, so it was black from day one. So we had to dye, and we weren't wearing kung fu uniforms, so we dyed them black. Yeah.
We're a lot of people in the martial arts world are like, explain Kempo, and I go, it's. I said, do you have a week? I go, we're going to start at the Shaolin Temple, 500-600 years ago. And we're going to go forward. I go,
thousands, right? Thousands is the Shaolin Temple, thousands. And that was, professor. So I agree there. I had some guy go to me, well, a kata is just a kata. It's just made up moves. I said, well, young man, when they've been doing your kata for thousands of years, then we can discuss it.
Right.
Right. I mean, we're talking about some of these katas are thousands of years old, right? Pasai Dai. I mean, some of these katas are thousands of years old. So I feel like I wrestle with that. But if I just sit in my own world and I don't put myself out in the line of fire, nothing will ever change. And if I just point fingers, nothing will ever change. But like my dad taught me, I mean, I did wear my karate uniform on Halloween because we had no money to buy Halloween costumes. So every year at Halloween, I was the Karate Kid. Every year. But other than that, you will never see me wear my uniform outside the school. You do not do that. That's how we were raised, right? We don't do that. So that's why people think I'm just this business guy until they delve deeper, because I think that's where we hurt the most. We lack good business practices. We lack good business structure. We lack culture building, those types of things in our industry. So, but we go back, sir. You and I go back. I mean, we think about it. You and I are direct from Chow and Matosi. How freaking cool is that? Who'd have thunk, right? Now tell me, Mr. Franchise, that guy, who is he connected to? Corporate? Right?
I'm not going to
mention. Never met. Here we are on two separate coasts. And that's how deep lineage goes, people. Do you hear us? That's how deep lineage can go. You and I have direct lineage to each other. Tell me that, Mr. Franchise. They don't, right? And so that's the brilliant thing about lineage that people discount. Who'd have thunk you and I are connected, right? Who'd have thunk that, Professor? How brilliant is that? But see, that is a prime example what a parent should hear right now when you walk into a martial arts school. Here's two guys.
We go back to Chow. He taught in the Midwest. And he taught in a YMCA. I mean, really? I mean, then I see his students. I took a seminar with Eugene Cedeno.
Me and Eugene Cedeno were classmates.
Shout out that the guy. I was like, you got to be kidding me. This guy's amazing. I'm like, for his instructor to teach out of a club program. Excuse me, my camera's messed up.
Rick Alamany is one of his instructors.
Really?
Yeah. And you'll see footage. Rick is, in his 80s now. And Rick was my surrogate dad. Rick and my father trained together with Ralph Castro. Eugene Cedeno, who I love, has taken Kenpo. He studied Kaji Kembo. He studied Ed Parker's. He studied, Ralph Castro's. So he's this really deep, deep knowledge of Kenpo in a lot of different arenas. Yeah. GM Cedeno is amazing. He's amazing. And we were classmates. And he was the toughest teacher. He just, and
what's been your number one model for getting the word out to the public about, and by the way, I'm always struggling to be that school that I talk about. So I want everybody to know that I'm not here purporting that I'm this end all be all martial arts school. It's a process. It's a constant process. I wake up every day thinking, I have to teach the best class I can teach tonight. How the hell am I going to do it? What am I going to do? I mean, I do it every day. I mean, am I misinterpreting my material? Am I giving my students, false information? I mean, not on purpose, but let me ask you a question. What is the best? So you're saying that a podcast is the best way.
I think a podcast is one. I think an active blog, again, as long as it doesn't turn into a bitch session.
Oh, it will.
Right. You know, because everybody will attack you, because I get attacked daily. I mean, people come at me from all sides, especially the contract guys, like I was the first non-Taekwondo guy to be asked to Korea to go speak at the Kukiwon. And after that, I was shunned because of it, because everybody was pissed off that what's this Kenpo guy doing it at a Taekwondo Kukiwon event, right? Mm-hmm. It's because the message is the message. It transcends all styles. It transcends all of that ego and that BS. But the powers that be still talk poorly of me after that. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay, because I'm just that 5-year-old kid, sir, right? Living in the ghetto, walking downstairs, because that mat was my playground. We couldn't go outside and play. My dad was a single father. So I love the mat. And that's why the guys who say, you need to work on your business, not in it. I say, nay, nay. I found confidence, discipline. I found it on the mat. I was born on the mat. I will die on the mat. So I think that's a huge thing, is sending the message. We need to be hands-on owners. We need to be on that mat a certain amount. You can't just sit behind a desk and dictate to people without ever getting on that mat and doing a knuckle push-up and taking a good kick in the ribs and getting in there. You got to be active. So I think leading by example, Professor, that's number one.
Well, I think my model is at 59 that I could do it about every 3 days for my recovery. But yeah, I did it Wednesday night, but I think I'll be okay tomorrow. We'll see.
But, I think Hanshi Kovar is a great example. He's very successful, 8 schools up in the Sacramento area, and he's the instructor's instructor, always training, always. I remember once I was speaking at the Super Show, and I look over and he's freaking rolling in a booth with America's Top Team, the head guy from that. And they're doing jujitsu, and he's like a little kid. And I'm going, wow, that's freaking cool. He don't care. His whole thing's going on at the Super Show, and he's sitting there rolling, And I've known Dave since the 70s as well. And so, see, that's a great example. I think Hanshi Kovar is a great martial artist. He perpetuates that first and foremost, and he's successful. So he's able to do his ProMac and different things like that and show schools. And in all his events, he's doing the ProMac now. It's very balanced. There's all the martial arts training, with really good people, and then there's business. So it's very, very balanced. And that, I think, is what needs to happen more and more, And so it made me rethink my event. That's why Saturday at my event, it's going to be all martial arts. But I think to do it right, you got to separate the two. One day. You got to
separate them.
All martial arts one day, then the next day, let's sit down as business people. Because if you're not,
I understand what you're saying. Okay, I understand.
If you're not good at business, you won't succeed. And if I could just say for a moment, if you could be teaching 500 people in your area, spreading the word of Kenpo, would that make you happier?
Make me happy to be teaching 5,000. It makes me happy to teach the 150 that I'm teaching.
Of course. Now. Yeah, but see, that's how you and I think. Whether there's one kid in class or 30, I'm happy because I love martial arts. So that's a given. But if I could impact and affect change we have 965 students between 2 locations. If I could do that at 2,000, 3,000 without ever compromising the value of martial arts, I would do it. But I don't believe.
And I know that's the trick. I mean, how do you do that and not compromise? That school down the street has more students than mine. Here, I think again, like you said, I'm not going to sit here and bash because that's not the answer, right? But the problem is these schools pop up and they fail. They ultimately always fail. The person sells the franchise, and then the people that take over the franchise have nothing but money in their eyes, and they weren't the original martial artists to set up the franchise.
It's normally the dad and the kid who's training there.
And then it finally falls. But then what ends up happening in the public arena, what ends up happening is somebody says to the school down the street, the middle school down the street, yeah, my 10-year-old keeps talking about starting a martial arts program. Oh, don't do it. We tried it. It's all a hoax. It's a money grab. Okay. So I used to sit back and go, like you do, I used to sit back and go, you know what? Let it go. Keep doing what you're doing. My wife is an earthy, crunchy person. She's one of the most wonderful, giving, altruistic human beings on the planet. And a local celebrity here in New England. And she's a wonderful person. She gives other people more money than she gives me. Not that she needs to give me any money, but the people around us get better birthday presents than I do. And I'm fine with that. She's a godsend to the world.
My wife too. My wife
God
did.
sent to me. She's a wonderful human being, but she says, don't worry about them. Keep doing what you're doing. I said, the only problem with that is and I'll start a local podcast, but and one of my instructors just chimed in, Brian Beckwith, Master Beckwith. He says, we can do a podcast. So I'm thinking about it. And I'm going to take your advice and maybe try to get a podcast up. Although
and a blog is really important too.
Yeah, and I'm going to do.
I didn't know I had the #1 blog till somebody pointed it out to me. I just put my head down and I write what I believe is good, authentic, honest.
I'm in the middle of writing my book right now, and I've finished chapter 3, and I don't know where it's going to end, but you're going to love the title. It's called "Searching for Matose." So.
Yeah. Do you know Rick Alemany and Bruce Jutnick, right? Bruce Jutnick is Hanshi Kovar's instructor. Rick Alemany is my instructor. They would visit Matose in jail here. Towards the end. Yeah. I have the book, What is Self-Defense? Did you see the one Matose made? What is Self-Defense?
Yeah.
I've got the paper and I have the hard copy, the big hardbound one. I've got both of them. These are closely connected. So that's what I'm sharing with you. You know I'm a martial artist. You know that. Yet I love it so much. I was willing to go out there, and I remember one of the guys said, you got to stop doing the super show. I said, why? He says, that's all bullshit stuff. I said, come on. The greatest leaders always go into the den of thieves and work. If I'm going to hide in my little enclaves and the things I create, then I'm never going to affect change. I have to
with no spoils, the cream rises to the top, right?
Right, sir. I got to go to the worst environments, the most commercial, contract, upgrade, belt fee, franchise, and stand there and go, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. These are the numbers we're generating without any of that salesmanship. We don't have scripts. We don't have a front desk person. We have none of it. None of it. Everything's month to month. We don't even have a 30-day cancel.
I have a 2-week cancel. I
don't. And we don't sit there and go
that's only because of the company I use for billing requires to.
And we don't even go through this whole, guerrilla warfare. If you want to quit, you're a bad parent. How can you let your kid stop? We don't do that. We send you a thank you postcard. Thank you for allowing us to serve you. If you're
a better man than me, I don't go on that far.
If you ever want to continue, well, see, a grateful mindset has nothing to do with the martial arts. I'm grateful if you take a trial and don't sign up. I'm grateful if you stay for a month. I'm grateful if you stay for 30 years. And that's just who I am, because I used to get really sad when students would leave. I'd get beat myself up and everything. And I realized martial arts is not for everybody. And I realized not everyone's going to be lifers like you and me. So does that mean they shouldn't do martial arts? I remember because for 3 years, I got to train with Great Grandmaster Castro privately. And we had 3 katas at white belt, Iron Fan, Eagle Flies Lone, another one. And they're so hard. You know where I moved them to? Year 4, professor. That's how hard these katas are. And I said to them, sir, why are these katas at white belt? You know what he said? To weed out the weak. I get it. If I'm going into battle and I'm going into war, I want the strongest warriors with me. And my reply was, Grandmaster, sir, isn't our purpose to help people become strong? And he just looked at me, what's your point? And I think I did basics for like the next month and a half in all my lessons. Just basics, white belt basics for the next month and a half in all my lessons.
Well, at least he didn't hit you.
Oh, he's done plenty of that. Plenty of that. But it was such a gift, and God rest his soul. I miss him every day. So that's the yin and the yang, that people often don't hear about me because I am trying to teach people business because that's where they lack. They don't lack as martial artists. They don't lack as teachers. They don't. But if they don't get their business in line while maintaining the integrity of their art, they're never going to survive. They'll always have to work a day job and they'll have to do it part-time. That's not bad if it's your version of success, but part-time effort, part-time results.
One of my friends, and I'm going to keep putting names out here, people I like. And I just want to point out on the podcast, the people that I don't like, I didn't mention their names. Anyways, I put out Mark Tonino, who runs 3 programs in the Weymouth, Mass area. He told me, John, once you start putting your full-time energy, when I decided to leave the hospital and help kids with autism and instead of just getting them at their critical states, when I started, he said, when you put your full-time energy into this, it'll grow. I took over my instructor school with 35 students.
Yes,
I'm now at somewhere between 150 and 160.
Yes, sir.
And he was right. And he was right. And I didn't think he was right, but he was right. I said, no, if I work 11 to 7 every day and sleep for 4 hours and get up and go to my school and train, people are going to appreciate that. People are going to appreciate me better for it. Maybe they did, but they didn't sign up anyway. But yeah, but I know I'm starting to get better at it. I'm starting to understand the business side, and I hate saying it. And it hurts me because the best martial arts schools should have the biggest numbers, period.
Yeah. But see, we spend a lot of money on curriculum development, staff training. It's a requirement. You have to train to teach. If you can't do it, you can't teach it. So certain, cultural values like that, we will not compromise is
Same here.
how we can sleep well at night. So when we're looking at different practices I learned at the Disney Business School, things like that, and we incorporate them in our business, we know first and foremost, we have to have good martial arts. I think it's like a great restaurant. If you don't have great food, who cares how great the business is?
Yeah, you might get them in the door for the first time, but yeah, it's
right.
Not come
right.
back.
Right. So that's the platform. We can do both. We can do both. Or I'm going to watch Kenpo die. And that will not happen. Not on my watch. Not our version of Shaolin Kenpo with Great Grandmaster Castro via William Chow. It will not happen. My guys are set to take over when I'm dead and gone. I'm going to sell these schools to the guys. We're already in the process of valuing it to bring them in as partners. So I know Kenpo will live for another 30, 40 years past my lifespan. And that's
hopefully 130 years.
Well, yeah, but I don't know what these guys will do, and I'm not responsible for that. So the legacy of Kenpo, that because what happened was Great Grandmaster Castro and Parker were here training side by side. Castro got a 7th degree. Then, Parker went into American Kenpo, and Castro said, I want to stay true to the Shaolin roots. So he went heavier. He went back to Chow, and they were training a lot together in the 80s. So that's why we're called Shaolin Kenpo, right? And that's where that came from. But I would never put that on my school's called One Martial Arts. Business, good Google search, martial arts. Nobody searches for Kenpo. But if you look at our about, culture, everything else, we sing the song of Kenpo.
My instructor, one of the best things my instructor did, was named it after our community. So
yeah, sure.
So if you do Google martial arts, Bridgewater area, West Bridgewater area, the area that I'm in, we're usually number 2 on the Google search.
Yeah, and that's smart business, right? Bridgewater, number 1, search martial arts. The second, no one searches for Kenpo or Taekwondo or Shotokan. Nobody searches that way. So that's smart business. Are you compromising the integrity of your art by doing that?
No.
See, that's it. I feel the same way, but again, everything we do, the majority of the money we invest is always in curriculum development and staff training. Yeah. Instead of ads and salespeople and upgrades and, learning how to do sales script and going to the latest Fandango of, I think that has no room in the martial arts yet.
One of my moms here that brings her son here, he has severe ADHD. She was actually one of the first employees for a franchise in the Norton, Mass area. And she said she didn't know how to college. She took the desk job, and they used to have ghosts call her and make sure that she was reading from the book. I go, what book? And she goes, the sales book. When every question they had, there was a tab that you went to the question and gave them a scripted answer. I said, you're kidding me.
Yeah. Well,
I go, who doesn't fall for that? Who doesn't know? I do have a student here that's coming in Monday. She did a trial class Monday, and the parents don't even live around here. They live about 15 miles away, which I think is the fact that they're coming 15 miles to take it, which is an oddity in the martial arts. That they've been to 4 schools and they're choosing us, and that gives me a warm fuzzy feeling on the inside. But I'm thinking, I wish more people would think like that. How do I get more people to think like him?
Well,
that's a podcast.
You create a tribe of raving fans like this person who's driving 15 miles. They'll tell somebody.
True.
And they'll tell somebody. And they'll tell
that's
somebody.
basically what we do. I mean,
word of mouth is still the best form, no matter with all the digital marketing and everything out there. Word of mouth is still the most powerful.
It is.
So we accentuate that. We say collectively we have 150 years of martial arts training and teaching experience between me and my team, right? We share that this is an investment. This isn't soccer. This isn't baseball. This is investment in your child's personal development and future. Oh, what happened? Did we lose Professor?
That's part of that.
Oh, there you are. All right, Professor, I got to wrap this up because we're just about out of time. And
thank you for the conversation. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. I thank you so much.
Thank you, sir,
for being here. I appreciate you. And, I hope you start the blog. I hope you start the podcast and continue to perpetuate that. Because the more of us that do that, but also teach the business and show you can be profitable, then more people want to make this their career. If they can't be profitable and sustain their family and take care of their team or anybody, then they have to get a day job.
Yeah, they can't eat. I
They
understand.
can't eat. They have to. And so how can we create that balance? And isn't that what the martial arts is all about? Balance. The balance of the two. So I thank you humbly, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye, sir.
All right, folks. So, I think this is an ongoing dialogue, and the more and more people that are teaching quality martial arts, and how do you define that? It's hard, especially to the consumer, right? Because I agree with Professor. There's videos every day. I saw somebody post about that today. Pablo Zamora did. He said, man, what's up with this? All these guys posting videos, and they're going to get people hurt. These martial arts techniques would never work. Never work. And they're going to, make people go out there and they're going to get hurt. And yet we can't stop that. And with the internet, there's more and more and more and more and more of that. But what we can do is this focused effort of leading by example, of really defining our purpose, our core values, what we believe is good martial arts, and going deep, right? I'm always getting better. A technique I did when I fought at 14 years old is obsolete today at 61 because I can't freaking throw that kick. So I need to adjust and pivot. So that journey of becoming a better martial artist at 30, at 40, at 50, at 60, at 70, it changes. And so I think that for me has always been a big part, because I do love tradition. I love doing the kata exactly the way my father taught me, or exactly the way that great Grandmaster Pastor taught me. But change is a big part of martial arts evolution. And Kenpo is that way. In our Kenpo, at least, the practitioner was allowed to take Kenpo and make it their own. And that's really in the entrepreneurial world and the business world. That's what it's all about. Whatever industry, whether you're an auto repair, whether you're a dry cleaner, a restaurant, a martial arts school, is you take that and you make it yours. And you have that unique niche in that industry where you are the solution for people who have a challenge. In this case, Professor works with kids with autism. Well, there's a need for that. That's one of his niches. People will come to him and seek him out and bring children with autism because he has found a way to take his Kenpo and make it impactful and of value to kids with autism. See? So that's cool. I don't think he's compromised anything. So can you do that? And can you scale and monetize it to a point? I wake up every day with a deep, deep sense of gratitude that I'm able to provide for my family. My son will never wear my suit to his high school graduation. My son will wear whatever he chooses, and I will pay for it joyfully and know that I have the money to do so. I'm saving for my retirement, my wife's, and we're doing so with joy and with the peace of mind, knowing that we're on a healthy track of cultivating wealth for our retirement. I shared that story recently. My first car was a 68 Dodge Dart. My dad charged me $800 for it. I just walked in and paid, cash for a new Tesla today. Sometimes I have to pinch myself. Doesn't mean I'm a better person because of it. Doesn't mean I'm involved and enlightened. It just means I've achieved a financial goal while maintaining the integrity of what I love the most, the martial arts, and being able to provide for my family. I'm grateful and proud. 2 of my team members have bought homes and new cars, and they're able to save for their retirement at 30 years old. I am so grateful to be able to offer them that, So you have to decide that. But I refuse to bitch and moan about people with contracts and upgrades and all that. And they're welcome to call me out any day of the week. I'm cool with that because I'll continue to go deeper on my own personal core values as long as it doesn't make me narrow-minded and insecure and narcissistic and ego-based. That's the yin to the yang of that, is you have these clear core values, but I never want to climb on a soapbox or my high horse and point fingers at people and think I'm holier than thou. If I start doing that, my purpose will be lost. So every day when I wake up, it is a system of checks and balances to be humble, but I will stand toe to toe with anybody that wants to call me out. I'm happy to do that. Never mistaken somebody's humility for weakness. It's probably one of our greatest strengths as human beings, not martial artists, as human beings. to have empathy, to be grateful, to be humble. That's what makes being human a joy. That's when humans are at their best, is when we can be humble. It truly is. So where are we going to be? August 12th through 15th, right here, Millbrae, California, for It's Time Life Balance. One day, Sunday is all business. So if you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, sign up for Sunday. If you want martial arts, sign up for Saturday as well and do the 2-day event. But what I recommend, 4 days, only 20 people, 4 days, we go deep. We just had Liam Richards sign up from England. People come from all over the world because the 4 days will change your life. Somebody that's working in my executive program, Wisdom, said, you're holistic. You not just teach me to write systems and job descriptions. You teach me to be a better version of me. I said, yeah. Who cares how much money you make? If you're unhappy and you're stressed out and you don't like your life, money will never fix that. And for me, my happiness is first and foremost being a martial artist. Second, being a great instructor. Third, being a great business owner. And then, of course, I tie that together with a bow of impacting the martial arts industry and sharing. You should be able to do both. I'm living proof. My partners all over the world running schools are proof you can have great martial arts and be extremely profitable. So come join us at It's Time Life Balance. Go to brannonbeliso.com, look under events and get signed up for that. I want to thank my sponsors, Tucson, Market Muscles, My Studio, Kids of Life Skills, LC Accounting. Thank you so much for supporting my vision. To Professor Hatfield, thank you so much, sir, for your kindness, your candidness, and your conviction. I think it's super, super cool. And we're inviting any school owner to come aboard. It's supposed to be designed where you come to me with the challenges you're having in your business, and I'll do my best to serve you with data-driven, reasonable, new thinking answers that are rooted in tradition, but also embraces innovation to help you create your version of success. Cool. Thank you, Marco, for holding up the back end of this as always. I am Brannon Beliso. Until we talk again, please, you go out there, live your best life.